Okay, let's talk about the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. The American Revolution is over at this point, and the War for Independence is over as well. It is now 1787, and the country is starting to grow. The United States has acquired more territory in the Northwest. It is called the Northwest because it is north of the Ohio River. At this point in time, the United States is brand new and pretty small. They have to figure out how they are going to introduce new states as they continue to grow. Answers to these questions were discussed and debated by the Confederation. The Constitution has not been drafted or ratified at this point in time, but the Northwest Ordinance will help guide some of the sections of the U.S. Constitution that is to come. So, again, the Northwest Ordinance is before the United States Constitution, which we have today still. When Congress met to discuss their plan for the future territory, they had more questions to address. Some of those questions included who will govern this territory, meaning how will they decide who is in charge? In the past, usually the white male landowners are the only ones with the power. When will residents be allowed to elect someone to Congress so they can be represented? Who will be allowed to vote in this territory? So far, only white males definitely had the right to vote. At what point in time will this territory or piece of land be able to become a state? Would the new states have the same rights and power as the original states? Slavery has not been outlawed, even though many of the founders knew it was a moral dilemma. Will the government be in charge of schooling? What about the Native Americans who live in the territory? Do the U.S. citizens who are moving west towards the new territory, are they responsible for fighting the Indians? Lastly, will the residents of these territories have individual rights like other states? So again, this document, it's addressing what's going to happen as we continue to expand. How do we introduce new states into this country? Because we didn't just start with 50 states like we have today. In order to introduce new territories into a state, they came up with a three-stage process. This first stage of the process starts with Congress. Congress will appoint a group of leaders to govern the new territory. They must use laws from other states. In order to move on to stage two, the territory must reach 5,000 free men. Once they get to 5,000 free men, they get to elect their own representatives to govern themselves rather than the appointees in the first stage. They will elect legislators for their territory and they must be property owners. Once the territory reaches a population of 60,000, they can then draft a constitution for their proposed state that Congress must approve. Each constitution has to guarantee a certain level of basic rights. If approved, that territory would be introduced as a state. So as you can see from the three stages, when a territory is first introduced, they're usually pretty small. But as they continue to grow and they get more people in that territory, that's when they can finally become a state. Why is it important? The Northwest Ordinance is important because it paved a way for future territories to become states, and we know that the U.S. is going to greatly expand. It also set a very important standard, like it required the new states are going to be equal to original states. So our first 13 states have the same rights as any new state that would come along. It also prohibited slavery in the 5 new states, and it guaranteed basic voting rights as well. It also guaranteed individual rights and guaranteed that state-sponsored education would be a thing. So they would be in charge of, the basic schooling. The 5 new states that we see in the Northwest Ordinance is Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Let's summarize this document. The Northwest Ordinance was a set of laws or a blueprint plan to introduce a new territory as a state. It is important because it created a plan for new territories. That way, they would be equal as the original states. These new territories also forbid slavery, and they guaranteed freedom of religion, and it points out that only land-owning men had rights. So this is important to remember at this time. Only land-owning men had the rights. Most importantly, many of the points founded in the Northwest Ordinance can be found in the Constitution and in the Bill of Rights, which is to come.